Good evening, friends, and welcome to yet another awesome session of Mindful Living. We truly appreciate your taking out the time and joining the session today. It's going to be another fascinating session where we are going to explore Baal Kand. In the last session of Baal Kand, we talked about Ayodhya, the governance structure there, and Dashrath's mindset. And today we are going to discuss more. Brigadier Vidur is going to discuss more about the diligence, perseverance, and buoyancy by Rishi Vishwamitra that led to his becoming a Brahmarshi. Ramayana holds valuable lessons for all of us, and that is the reason we are hosting this series. Uh, Initially, the love for Ramayana was rekindled when I covered a story on Ramayana in my book Beyond Limits, which is titled Blessings in Disguise. And I talked about how Kaikeyi's asking Dashrath for boon led to exile of Ram, and how in the contemporary world that can be talked about or referred to as politics. When something like this happens, we think that something very bad has happened, but those that bad incident or what looks bad at that point of time eventually turns out to be very, very good. And if Kakai had not asked for those boons, we would not have had this wonderful scripture, which has got such valuable lessons for us. And today we have no less than Brigadier Vidur, who is a veteran and in the Indian Army, talking to us about this. So there's a wonderful combination of military warfare and the scripture coming together. And so the Brigadier Vidur was commissioned into the Indian Army in 1982, and he had a distinguished career of 33 years, where he rose from the rank of second lieutenant to a brigadier. His operational experience ranges from conventional offensive defense in Siachen Glacier in Operation Meghdoot to dealing with anti-terrorist battles in Kashmir and Assam, Arunachal in Operation Rakshak and Operation Rhino, respectively. He's a qualified interviewing officer from DIPR Delhi. He is served as the president of Elite Services Selection Board in Bhopal, benchmarking selection processes, leadership development, and research for selecting officers for the Indian Armed Forces. He has, during his tenure, evaluated over 2,500 aspirants and developed their personality profiles. He's a qualified instructor in gunnery and has served as an instructor at Surveillance and Target Acquisition Branch of prestigious School of Artillery, Devlali, in his younger days. He still is quite young, but he mentions his younger days. Post his retirement, he's actively involved in personality development training and training young lads to become officers in the Indian Armed Forces. Thank you very much, Brigadier Vidur, for this initiative because it helps bright people get into the defense forces and keep us civilians safe. So thank you very much for everything that you have done for us and continue to do for the country and for the community. And currently, he serves as an independent director on the board of Venki's India Limited. Brigadier Virod, uh, heartfelt gratitude to you for supporting this initiative and taking the wisdom from the ancient scripture of Ramayana to modern times. Many people like me, personally, I speak for myself, find it difficult to relate to the wisdom, to the way Ramayana is written. But when somebody like Brigadier Vidur speaks about it, it becomes so relatable. And the essence or the lessons from Ramayana become available to us. And on that note, I'll request you to please share the message about the session today with your friends and family so that they can also join us and benefit from the same session that we are having. I'll take a minute to introduce myself for those who may be watching this session on a video later or who are joining the session by Mindful Living for the first time. My name is Ashish and I'm the founder of Mindful Living. We started this community in April 2020 when the first lockdown happened to help people deal with the stress that the lockdown was causing. Now it has become a vibrant community of over thousands of people who are sharing with each other how to live consciously. And I invite you to join this community to lead a healthier, happier, and healthier life. We don't advertise about the work we do. I'll request you to keep yourself on mute when not speaking. And I invite you to join this community. This is a no nonsense community with no religious political posts or good morning, good night messages. And the sessions that we have every weekend, we hold sessions every weekend on Living Consciously. Those previous, we have over 200 videos of sessions with the world-class speakers like Brigadier Vidur on our YouTube channel. So you can scan this QR code and join our YouTube channel. We'll also be sharing the link in the chat, so you can click the link and join our community or subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll request you to keep your cameras on so that it becomes more engaging, and it's really wonderful looking at your beautiful faces rather than at the black tiles which we see right now. So keep your cameras on and be actively engaged. We'll open up the session for Q&A at the end of the session, but be actively engaged. Put your comments, show thumbs up or love if there is anything that Brigadier Vidur shares that resonates with you. So on that note, I would like to invite Brigadier Vidur to take the session forward. And thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Ashish, for all those good words spoken of me, and also raising my status from a local speaker to a world-class speaker. I'm so grateful to you.
You are Brigadier Vidur.
At the outset, let me wish a very happy Women's Day to all the women in the audience, uh, especially my wife who has joined today after a lot of request. So happy Women's Day to all of you. I will, before I start, I will just share my presentation. Can you all see it?
Yes, we can see it, Brigadier Vidur.
Yeah, it was much easier this time thanks to the training given by you, Mr. Ashish. So, firstly, my sincere thanks to all of you for joining the session. Uh, we have had earlier sessions on the subject, uh, Ramayana, a transformation tool for corporate professionals. We also, in addition to the corporate values, we also see what are the personal values that we can get from this important scripture that we have. Uh, we have been talking about Baal Kand for last 2 to 3 sessions, and this is a small little disclaimer. Baal Kand is part of the 7 Kandas of the Ramayana. The first is the Baal Kand, which has got 77 sargas and 2280 shloks. We already spoken of what is a shlok. This was a kind of poetry that Valmiki spoke for the first time. Valmiki is considered as the Adi Kavi. So that is the shlok, is this the format in which the entire Ramayana has been written or spoken, whatever. Now, what we have already gone through in the last time, I will just speak out, not go into the detail. We have heard about the description of Ayodhya and how Ayodhya was governed, and how the ideal principles of governance of Ayodhya are even live for today's governance. We've seen that Ashwamedha and Putreshti Yadna was conducted by Dasharatha. Dasharatha himself was about 60,000 years old and he had no son. So this was conducted, and when the gods were invoked, the gods spoke among themselves and they wanted somebody to, stop the trouble by Ravan. So they wanted something to happen. So Vishnu uh, decided to take birth on the earth in the form of four brothers. That is Sri Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna. And at the same time, Brahma asked the gods to, that is the demigods, to appear in the form of Vanara. We spoke about the very short account of the period between birth and the childhood. Uh, Before about 12 years of age, the entire education was over. Uh, Vishwamitra then arrives and the task starts. Vishwamitra initially, was promised everything that he wanted. But then Dashrath, when he heard that he wanted Ram to go and fight the Rakshasas like Maricha and Subahu, were considered as a very, very strong Rakshasas, uh, he was a little worried because firstly, he had no that much confidence in Ram. Secondly, he had too much of love for Ram, and Ram was born after so many years by so much effort. So he was not willing. However, on Vasishta's advice, uh, he uh, prepared himself to send Ram with Vishwamitra. Uh, the first night, Ram stayed with Vishwamitra on the Sharayu river bank. When Vishwamitra started giving him all the knowledge, and that was the aim of the entire exercise. So he gave him the knowledge called Bala and Atibala, by which they became, uh, their they became almost immune to the actions of Rakshasa when they were sleeping. They passed through various places. One of them was Angadesh. Then en route, they killed uh, a lady called, a Rakshasi called Tataka, who was becoming a big trouble for everyone. Vishwamitra could have killed her, but then he didn't want to take that, he didn't want to get angry and all that. We'll see that why it has happened when we see the Vishwamitra's life story. So he gave this task to Ram. Ram was also initially a little hesitant because it involves Sri Hatya. But then a lesson was learned by Ram there that as a king, you have to sometimes do something in favor of your kingdom, even if it means Hatya or even if it means a sin, but it is not considered as sin for a king. And the gods are so happy when he kills Tataka that they said, you give all your Shastras and Astras to Sri Ram. Whatever you've gained all through your life, hand it over to Sri Ram so that he uses it later in life. Then they go to Siddhashram, and in Siddhashram, there is a yajna being conducted by Vishwamitra. Sometimes I will pronounce it as yajna, sometimes as yagya, because yagya will be more conscious, since most of you will know sacrifice by that name. But I am trained to call it yajna by birth, so don't mind that. It both means the same. He kills Subahu with Agneyastra, by which he burns him. Whereas with Manavastra, he kills Maricha. I don't know the reason, but it is the same Maricha who becomes the golden deer later on. So was it planned or it just happened? I don't know. Then they come via, they go towards Mithila. In between, they go to the ashram in which Ahilya has been cursed sometimes ago by Gautam Rishi to become a stone and lay there till Sri Ram comes and blesses her to become or make her alive again. So he does that. And then they go to Mithila and meet Janak. Now, while Janak is welcoming Vishwamitra and the the two brothers, Shatananda, who is also the priest with Janaka. He's also along with him. Now, Shatananda happens to be the son of Ahilya and Gautam. So when he comes to know that Ahilya has taken her form back and Ahilya has been accepted back by Gautam, he becomes very happy, and he wants to now, you know, do some favor to Vishwamitra. So he starts telling the story of Vishwamitra as to how he has become from a king to a king to a Brahmarshi. And this is really an astonishing story, and that is why I did not stop at Baal Kanda in last episode, because unless we hear this story, the perseverance that Vishwamitra has shown in his life, it is remarkable, and it is very useful for all of us in any field of profession. So, what Shatananda narrated, I will go over that in the next few minutes. So, this is the complete story of grit and determination, the story of perseverance and buoyancy. It is the story that proves that rage, lust, greed, ego, envy, illusion, they only destroy, uh, nothing else. They just have one quality in them, that they do not allow you to be successful. It is a journey from a king to a Brahmarshi, uh, a Kshatriya king to a Brahmarshi. A Brahmarshi is a Brahmin and king is a Kshatriya. So it is a journey from a Kshatriyahood to a Brahmanhood. It's a journey from an ordinary to extraordinary. It's a transformation from envy to humility. The entire story started with the envy of Vasishtha. And thereafter, when Vishwamitra becomes Brahmarshi himself, he worships Brahmastra. He washes Vasishta's feet, which shows that he is completely transformed man. Sri Ram never knew about it because the great sages never gloat about themselves. Otherwise, Sri Ram was with Vishwamitra for good about 11, 12 days by now. But then Vishwamitra never himself spoke about himself. So, a little bit about Vishwamitra, who he was. He is the 11th descendant of Chandra, moon. Uh, the 5th descendant was Janu. Now, we haven't in the Baal Kand spoke about Janu, but Janu was, probably it will come later. Janu was a king in this dynasty, sorry, a Rishi in the dynasty. And when Bhagirath was trying to get Ganga on the earth, the first flow of Ganga, he disturbed the ashram of Janu. And Janu got very angry and he drank the whole Ganga. So Bhagirathi had then pleaded to him and done some tapasya, and finally he got okay, he got ready, and he then allowed Ganga to flow on the land, and that is why Ganga is also called Jannavi. That is Janu's daughter. So the eighth generation was a Kusa, another Rishi, and from this the dynasty get the name of Kaushika. So this entire dynasty is called Kaushika. Gadhi was the 10th generation and Vishwamitra was the son of Gadhi. Vishwamitra's sister was, her name was Satyavati, and she flows as a Kaushika river. Kaushika river in the north and east of India. So Vishwamitra was the revered king of Kanyakubja, which is present as Kannauj. Once during the tour of his duty, Vishwamitra visited Vasishtha's absolutely impoverished ashram. He was probably on some shikar or something, and he saw the ashram and he went there, he worshipped him. What a king should do to a Rishi, he did that. So Vishwamitra was requested by Vasishtha that you please enjoy our hospitality, you have something and go. So Vasishtha thought he is only telling the king. So he said, nahi, it's okay. I got the entire army with me and it's okay. We'll just go like that. So Vasishtha said, no, no, I will look after the entire army. And he laid out a good bill of fare for him, for the entire army. Now, when the spread was laid out, Vishwamitra got surprised as to he doesn't have anything. It's such an impoverished ashram. And how come he is giving so much? So then he found that uh, Vasishtha has a cow by the name Shabala. One second. Shabala, who is a Kamadhenu. She gives like Kalpa Vriksha. Kamadhenu also gives what you want when you want. And he saw that because of this Kamadhenu, the entire food was laid out and all the arrangements were made. Everything the Kamadhenu did, the Shabala did. So now Vishwamitra's greed, it started. So he requested Vasishtha that I'll give you whatever you want, but give me this Kamadhenu. So Vasishtha said, no, it has been presented to me by Brahma and I can't give it to you. So Vishwamitra argued that, look, you are in my country, you are in my land, and the king has the authority over everything that is in his land. So you have to give me this. So he showed Vishwamitra that Shabala was not standing on the land. She was standing above land, about a few inches or a few feet above land, and therefore she does not belong to you because she's not on the land. I am on your land, so I belong to you, but she does not belong to you. However, Vishwamitra, not happy with that, he tells his forces to drag her forcibly. Now, when she is dragged forcibly, she has tears in her eyes and she requests Vasishtha that do something for me, fight with Vishwamitra and get me back. But Vasishtha says, no, I cannot fight my king. How can I fight my king? He's my king. I cannot fight. So she said, okay, you don't fight, but then you allow me to do something in my self-defense. So she says, okay, you do that. So in her self-defense, she creates an army. And this army fights Vishwamitra's army. Initially, Shabla's army gets killed, but thereafter she creates multiple. She can do anything. She can create anything. So she create multiple number of people. And finally, not only that Vishwamitra's army gets defeated, but also his children, most of his children get killed. His ego gets battered and he feels absolutely humiliated. He crowns his surviving son and then he decides that I will go and do some penance and get unlimited weapons from Shiva and then come back and fight Vasishtha again. So you rise when your pride falls. That is how he has, got ready to crown his son and go and do penance. I have given number to each tapasya. Probably Vishwamitra's tapasya was not in numbers of phases. It was a continuous tapasya. But since it is in every tapasya has got a peculiar thing to study, I have numbered them first, second, third, fourth. And mind you, each tapasya went on for about 1,000 years. So you can imagine the perseverance of a person. So in the first tapasya, Vishwamitra carried out the tapasya in slope of Himalayas and he invoked Shiva. Shiva appears and he says, what do you want? So Vishwamitra says, give me all the weapons that Deva, Danav, Maharshi, Gandharva, Yaksha, Rakshasa, everyone has. Give me all those so that I can use them against Vasishtha. So Shiva had no problem. He said, Tathastu. Uh, Vishwamitra now doesn't waste time. He goes to Vasishtha's ashram again and he destroys the ashram. So when he destroys the ashram, obviously that initial hiccup is already always there. But then when he tries to use all his weapons, Vishwamitra, Vasishtha gets ready with his Brahma Danda. Brahma Danda is nothing but a bamboo pole, but which has power to stop all the weapons and which only Brahmarshi has. So all the weapons, fired by Vishwamitra, they get neutralized or destroyed by Brahmadanda of Vasishtha. So again, Vishwamitra feels completely charged and defeated, humiliated, because earlier a cow defeated him, and now it is a frail man, aged man with a bamboo pole defeats him. So he's a completely devastated man now, moral wise, because the degree of insult is inversely proportional to the size of the entity causing it. Who was causing it? A cow was causing it. A frail man was causing it. A bamboo pole was causing it. To a man who was firstly a king like Vishwamitra, and secondly, who got the boon from Shiva. So he got completely devastated. And now he says, there is nothing short of now Brahmarshi. I will not get happy with anything short of Brahmarshi. These weapons, etc., is all over. Now my aim is to defeat Vasishtha, who is a Brahmarshi, and I can only do that when I become Brahmarshi. So he wants to become now. Now he wanted, earlier he wanted the cow like Brahmarshi or cow like Vasishtha. Now he wants to become Brahmarshi like Vasishtha. So this is what your ego, your greed, your lust is. So the first tapasya was fruitless. The second tapasya now starts. And this tapasya is for Brahmarshi. So he proceeds to south with his queen, and he gets 4 children out of this queen. He carries out another 1,000 years of tapasya and invokes Brahma this time. Because Brahma is the person who can give you the designation of Brahmarshi. Brahma, happy with the tapasya, appears, and he tells him that because of your austerities, you are now acknowledged as Rajarshi. Rajarshi is the Rishi among kings. But Vishwamitra says, why don't you give me Brahmarshi? Because Rajarshi I am not happy with. So he says the desired qualification must be preceded with the endeavor to prove that it is deserved. So unless you deserve a qualification, getting it is futile. So he again fails and he decides to continue with his tapasya. I will not say go into another tapasya, but continue with his tapasya. And in our parlance, the third tapasya starts. Now, while Vishwamitra was undergoing the tapasya, there was a king called Trishanku, who was a king from Ikshvaku dynasty, which is the same as Dasharatha and Sri Ram. He was handsome, he was charismatic, and he somehow wanted to go to the heaven without death with body, Sadeha, which to my knowledge, so far only Sant Tukaram has gone, Sadeha Swarga. But he probably for some reasons wanted to go. And he went to his spiritual master, that is Vasishtha. And Vasishtha heard him and he was completely repelled and disgusted with his idea. And he reprimands him against it. He says, such things are not acceptable, they don't exist, and you cannot do this. If you want to do something, you do some prayaschitta, you do some penance, you do some tapascharya, then you can do it. You cannot do just one yajna and go to the heaven. But Trishanku is not happy. Trishanku says, okay, if not you, I will go and meet your sons, because your sons are a little modern, so they will understand my requirement and probably help me out. So he goes to their sons. He has 100 sons, Vasishtha. So he goes to the sons and requests them that your father is saying no, and please do something. So they say, sorry, if our father has said no, however, you will even come to us, because when he has told you no, you should have understood that it is no. So he says, fine, if you don't do, I might go somewhere else and, ask for it. So when he says that I will go somewhere else and ask for it, they get angry and they say, okay, they curse him that you will be bereft of your beauty, kingdom, wealth, everything. So he becomes, his hair, etc., goes, his charm goes, his people don't recognize him. And this is the form in which, he then leaves that ashram. So looking for shortcut is a symptom of intolerance and impatience and unlikely to fetch you results. If you have to have results, you have to work hard for that. So now what to do? So he knew that Vishwamitra is the arch enemy of Vasishtha. So since that is the case, he says, I will go and request Vishwamitra. So he goes, he pleads Vishwamitra, he flatters him, he pleads him. And he tells him that what Vasishtha could not do, you can do. He touches the raw nerve of Vishwamitra, flatters him. And Vishwamitra also falls prey to his flattery. And when you fall prey to flattery, you deviate from your goal. Vishwamitra accepts the challenge and he calls uh, all the sages available in the country to help him doing this sacrifice, fire sacrifice. They all come because they're all worried that if they don't come, Vishwamitra will not leave them. So they all come. Who doesn't come is one is Vasishtha and another is Vasishtha's children. So these are the people who don't come. Vasishtha, of course, he can't do anything. But he is unhappy with Vasishtha's children not coming. And he curses them that, they'll take 700 births on earth in some, disregarded and uncultured tribal community. Thereafter, Vishwamitra heads that unique ritual. It is one of its own kind because there is no such ritual exist. So nobody knows about it. However, everyone continues doing it with Vishwamitra. And after the ritual is complete, he invokes the demigods to take the oblations. But obviously, the demigods also don't know that such thing is going on because it is nowhere written in the scriptures. Nobody knows about it. So nobody comes. So when nobody comes, Vishwamitra is already impatient. Uh, he raises his ladle, and with that raising of ladle, Trishanku starts going up. He starts traveling towards the heaven. Now, when he starts traveling with body, you don't realize otherwise, but when you travel with body in the space, you have all the problems of weather, wind, pressure, the temperature, everything, and his body is normal human body, so the body is suffering. Now he started, facing the pain, and he started realizing how wrong was his decision to even desire to go to heaven with body, even when his body was good. So he reaches, in any case, with Vishwamitra's power and force, he reaches heaven. Now in heaven, nobody knows that, somebody like this going to come because There, everything is by, a prepared chart. They know exactly who is coming, what time is coming, whether he's going to hell, whether he's going to heaven, and there are probably reception parties ready there. But there was no reception party for Trishanku. And when the demigods were told that somebody like this has come, they said nothing doing. So Indra sends them back, sends Trishanku back. Now, when Indra sends Trishanku back, he started crying because obviously he has to go through the same agony again. Now, this cry Vishwamitra hears and he sees him coming back. So he stops him. Now a situation comes uh, where Trishanku wants to go back to the earth, realizing what problems he might face in the space. But Vishwamitra takes it as his ego, and he wants him to be in this space, and he wants him to go back to Swarga. So what Vishwamitra does is he creates a, a, replica of heaven and directs Trishanku to that replica. Now, when he creates the replica, he is almost out of his power and knowledge and everything. So he's created a thing, but then now how to maintain it? Maintenance is extremely difficult. So he calls out Vishnu. Now it is, from his side, he calls out Vishnu to help him out. So Vishnu appears, he hears Vishwamitra, and then he gives him a piece of his mind. And he says, creating or destroying anything is very easy, but maintaining it is most difficult. And we all face this. I mean, on 1st of January, we initiate, a lot of things which probably die down by 5th of January. We start doing a lot of things in our life. I will start doing this. I will stop doing this. But then that only lasts for some time. But maintaining is very, very, we used to have all our qualities in the SSB have a definition. So there is a definition of initiative. So definition of initiative says that, you start a new thing. So it needs to be a new thing. And so it should be in a different field. It is not in the field that you are already in. So firstly, you start a new thing. Secondly, in a different field. Then it should be a positive thing. And second, and lastly, you continue with it till you achieve the success. So that is the part of initiative. So, creating or destroying anything is easy, but maintenance is the most important part of initiative, which we all must remember. So Lord Vishnu understands the problem of Vishwamitra, and he agrees to maintain the celestial body that is created by Vishwamitra. Also, Trishanku learns a lesson a very hard way, though. Trishanku represents that inertia or laziness which prevents one from working hard to achieve his goal. So now the Vishwamitra's third tapasya also, it fails. Yeah, we've seen this. But he continues with his tapasya. He said, okay, fine, I failed in last 1000 years, doesn't matter. I continue with the tapasya. So now he continues with his tapasya from a different location. He goes to Pushkar, which is in the west, and he continues with his tapasya. Some time passes in the tapasya, and while his tapasya is going on, there is another king in the same dynasty. His name is Ambarish. He is conducting a yajna for something which is nothing related with Vishwamitra. But it is happening there. Now see the situation. Between Trishanku and Ambarish, who are part of the same dynasty, there is a difference of 23 generations. So imagine the tapasya of Vishwamitra is going on while the 23 generations in Ikshwaku dynasty are already over. So imagine the time for which the tapascharyas must be carrying on those days. So this Ambrish is carrying out a yajna, and in every yajna there is a yajna pashu, the sacrificial animal. Unless you sacrifice that particular sacrificial animal, you do not get the fruits for it. And this animal is not only for sacrifice, but it is also worshipped. So what Indra does, for whatever thing, Indra is a very nasty person. You will see all these Tapashcharya series. Uh, so with what in view, I don't know, but Indra steals the animal, this sacrificial animal. And the priests there, they tell the king that unless there is an animal, we cannot conduct this yajna. The only alternative is you get some person. You can get a person, we will sacrifice the person, and the fruits of the yajna can be achieved. So now where to get it? So Ambrish himself goes on a mission, and then he finds one Ruchika Rishi in Bhrigu mountains. He's got a son called Shunashep. We will not go into the details at what has happened, but Shunashep is the person who agrees to accompany Ambrish and sacrifice himself in the sacrifice, fire sacrifice. For this, of course, Ambrish pays a lot of money and everything that was in vogue those days. Now, while Shunashep and Ambrish are coming back, they pass via Pushkar. And Vishwamitra is supposed to be his maternal uncle. So he says, I will go and meet my maternal uncle and then we'll go. So Ambrish had no reasons not to agree. Now, by now, Shunashep started thinking that why am I dying? I mean, I have nothing to gain for the death. Whatever money probably my father got, that's a different thing. But I have no reasons to die. So he then goes and requests Vishwamitra if you can do something by which neither is Ambrish affected, because obviously he's paid so much of money, and I can also live long. So what Vishwamitra does is he calls his four children. He calls his four children and he tells them that this is the problem, and if one of you can go and take his place, at least this boy will get saved. So obviously none of them agree. They say, no, why should we go? I mean, if he has agreed because of whatever greed his parents had, we will not go there. And Vishwamitra, as it is, he gets angry. And now he curses the children also. So Vishwamitra gets angry now again. Now, anger is one thing which spoiled his, tapashcharya again and again. And he gets angry again. And he sends like Vasishtha's children. He also curses his own children to be born in a community which is fed on dogs' flesh. So that is how this tapashcharya also. Acha, okay. But before that, what happens? Now Vishwamitra realizes that I have no other alternative now. So the only alternative that he thinks is he gives a mantra to Shunashep. The mantra is praising Indra. So he says when the sacrifice is going on, you utter this mantra again and again, and probably you'll be saved. So Shunashep chants this mantra when the sacrifice is going on. So Indra gets happy because it's a flattery of Indra. And then since Indra had stolen that animal, he returns the animal and Shunashep gets escaped. So while Shunashep gets escaped, Vishwamitra's tapashcharya fails. So the fourth tapashcharya also fails due to anger. But then he wouldn't leave. So he continues with his tapasya for another 1,000 years. I'll be probably speaking on this for about half an hour. And that half an hour, when I was reading it also, it was so painful. Nothing stops Vishwamitra. Arey abhi to bas kar, arey abhi to bas kar, arey abhi to bas kar. Imagine if we get so much bored in 20 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, how would he have continued for 10,000 years or maybe more than that? It's really remarkable. So he continues with his tapasya, 1,000 years in Pushkar again. Gods appear and acknowledge him as a Rishi. Earlier, he was a Rishi in kings. Now he's a Rishi by itself. But then he is not happy again and he decides to continue with his tapasya. Maintenance of goal, irrespective of obstacles and failures, no compromise with the goal. Vishwamitra continues with the next spell of tapasya in Pushkar itself. Now Indra plays yet again. Indra plays a lot of time. In fact, Indra plays not only in Vishwamitra's case, but many other places. Like Gautam, he has played nasty. Many other places he has played nasty. We'll see that as and when we come across those situations. He sends Menaka. Menaka is an Apsara, a beautiful Apsara. So Menaka comes and, she lures Vishwamitra. And Vishwamitra and Menaka stay together in the same ashram for 10 years. But somewhere after that, Vishwamitra realizes that I have done a mistake. I am doing tapasya. How can I do this? So he gets guilty. And but then he knows that it is not Menaka's fault. It is all done by Indra. So he forgives Menaka. But then because he got lured towards her, his tapasya goes in vain again. So now he goes back to Himalaya and continues his tapasya from there, in spite of repeated disturbances. So it's like a sun who daily reminds us that we too can again rise from the failure, rise from the darkness. So Vishwamitra also has done that again and again. There was a darkness, he's again risen from there. He again continued with his tapasya. Then comes to the next tapasya, that is, in our parlance, it is 7th tapasya. So Vishwamitra goes to Himalaya for tapasya. He carries out tapasya for 1,000 years. Pleased with tapasya, Brahma now appears and he calls him Maharshi. So he's the greatest amongst all the rishis. But again, he's not happy with that. He says, no, Brahmarshi, I want only Brahmarshi, nothing less than that. So Brahma says, no, you have to still work more for that. You are not yet fit enough for Maharshi, for Brahmarshi. So he continues with his tapasya. Now, this time he says, okay, I will be only standing without support, with both the hands raised, without food, only by consuming air. Like how Ahilya stayed, if you remember what I said last time. After Gautam Rishi's curse, she stayed on air for 1,000 years or 10,000, whatever, till Ram came and released her from that state. So after 1,000 years of such tapasya, Indra again, played naughty, and he planned to send Ramba to lure Vishwamitra. Ramba resisted, but then he said, no, don't worry, I will protect you. So Ramba takes attractive form and comes. This time, a little wiser, Vishwamitra doesn't get enticed by her. But then he gets angry. He gets angry once again and curses her to be a stone till blessed by a Brahmarshi whenever a Brahmarshi comes. Probably he realized that maybe my Brahmarshi status is coming nearer. For what? I don't know. But then he said, you will be only relieved from this status when some Brahmarshi blesses you. Now Vishwamitra realizes that, because of anger, his tapacharya has not been this. So Indra achieves his aim and Vishwamitra fails one again. But Indra achieved at the cost of Ramba. Vishwamitra again, unfazed, refuses to give up the resistance, the insistence on goal, and that is to become Brahmarshi. So the ninth tapacharya again, each one of 1,000 years. This time again for 1,000 years. But this time he takes to further stringent austerities. No more anger, no more speech, no more breathing, no more food, water, and win over all the organs. And this spell of tapacharya had no comparison. He becomes like a wood because there is nothing going into the body. No impediments could shake him. Indra must have tried uh, very hard to, disturb him, but nothing could help him. After 1,000 years, Vishwamitra stopped his tapacharya for a while to eat food. Now, unless you eat food, like व्रत का जैसे होता है, हम लोग व्रत करते हैं, खाना खा के छोड़ते हैं, and unless you know have food, that vrat is not accepted, something like that. So similarly, a tapacharya is not accepted unless probably you take a naivedya or that kind of a thing before you end the tapacharya. So he prepares food for himself, and when he's about to eat, he sees a Brahman in front of him who is hungry and asks for food, fully knowing that it is Indra who is creating the problem again. He gives him all the food and he continues with his tapacharya. And he goes into the 10th tapacharya with a complete control over anger, lust, ego, everything. Now, as Vishwamitra continues with his tapacharya for 1,000 years, he starts illuminating. Indra tries his level best to lure him, anger him, everything, but it doesn't work. Austerities continue to grow and in a very, very flawless manner. Now the demigods themselves start worrying because he is becoming more and more, his luster is becoming more and more brighter than the demigods. He is becoming more and more brighter than the sun in himself. The ocean started getting disturbed, the mountains start getting cracked, the wind starts blowing fiercely, the people get disturbed. The sun looks pale before the brilliance of Vishwamitra. And all the demigods now go and request Brahma to accept whatever he wants, because otherwise the world will get destroyed. So Brahma appears, Brahma welcomes Vishwamitra as a Brahmarshi, and Vishwamitra then invokes Vedas and Dhanurveda, because it is the prerogative of a Brahmarshi or a Brahman and not a Kshatriya. So he invokes that, and now he invites Vasishtha, but not for fight. It was to worship him, and he worships him. He washes his feet, and that is how he uh, reacts to Vasishtha this time. He's become Brahmarshi now, but then he doesn't have that enmity with Vasishtha now, though it started with that, but it ended with love and affection. So to be extraordinary, you have to work hard, you have to face challenges, you have to have discipline and strong moral values. Without strong moral values, you cannot have you cannot become extraordinary. You might get a temporary success, but if you want to become extraordinary, strong moral values and discipline is very, very important. So that is about the about Vishwamitra. Uh, uh, so we were at Shatananda describing Vishwamitra's story to Sri Ram. Then they go to Janaka, King Janak, he explains explains them the story of Baal. Janak also explains how Sita was found in the while he was tilling the land. You've seen this last time, so I'll not repeat it. And then since a little bit more about Sita. Uh, Sita, when was small and she was playing in the garden, something that she was playing with goes and sits somewhere under this Shiva Dhanusha. So it is so much entangled in that it cannot be removed without lifting the Shiva Dhanusha. So what Sita does is she very easily lifts this Dhanusha and she takes out these things. So while she was doing this, her friends and sisters, they saw this and then they go and inform Raja Raja Janak, that look at this, you have been telling us about this, that you require so much of strength to lift this Dhanusha, but Sita has done it without any problems. So there, Janaka takes a decision that for marrying Sita, there will be a Virya Shulka. Virya Shulka means bravery will be the only cost of marrying. So that is where he decides that anybody who lifts this Dhanusha and strings it only will marry Sita. So Sri Ram does that, and then the people are invited from Ayodhya for the marriage. And while this marriage ceremony is on, Vishwamitra, uh, requests Janaka and his brother. His brother's name is Kushadwaja. Uh, Two daughters of Janaka, that is Sita and Urmila. They are married to Sri Ram and Lakshman. And the two daughters of Kushadwaja, that is Mandvi and Shrutakirti, they marry Bharat and Shatrugna. So this is requested by Vishwamitra and accepted by Vasishtha, accepted by Dashrath, Janak and Kushadwaja. And that is how all four brothers get married. Now, after the marriage is over, the Dashrath, his entire Sena had come, all his ministries, etc., etc. They're all going back. Now, when they are going back, they encounter Parshuram. So this is another interesting story. Sir, how much time do we have?
We have about 20 minutes, Brigadier Vidar.
Okay, I should be able to finish. So, so they encounter Parshuram in between. Now, who is Parshuram? Parshuram is actually the sixth avatar of Lord Vishnu. That is the avatar prior to Sri Ram. He is the son of Jamadagni and Renuka. And he is known by various names like Ram, Jamadagni because he is Jamadagni's son, Bhargav Ram because he is coming from Bhargav Kula, Bhargav family. He is also called Veer Ram. He had vowed to kill all Kshatriyas because Jamadagni was killed by a Kshatriya in the circumstances in which he should not have been killed because he had renounced all the weapons, etc., etc., but yet he was killed. So enraged by that, Vishwamitra had, Parshuram had taken a vow that he will kill all Kshatriyas from the earth. So Kartivir Arjun is the person who killed him. Now again, the story was similar. Jamadagni had a cow. Her name, tell you. Yeah, he had a Kamdenu. I'm forgetting the name.
Surabhi.
Surabhi, yeah, correct. So Surabhi was the Kamadhenu that Jamadagni had. And Kartivir Arjun, this Arjun is not the Mahabharata Arjun. He was a king in Ramayana. So he wanted it. He was not ready to give. So he kills him. So to cut the story short. Parshuram is otherwise known for his courage, aggressiveness, and all his fighting with serenity, patience, and prudence. Now, while these people were going, Vishwamitra, of course, proceeds uh, back to Himalaya, and Dashrath, his family, ministry, priests, etc., are proceeding to Ayodhya. Now, while they're going, there were certain indications by the nature. The birds are having a very critical sound. The uh, the deers are moving around. So Dasharatha gets worried. He says, "Why is it a bad omen? And why is this bad omen when we are going after such a good ceremony?" So he asks Vasishtha, and Vasishtha says, "Don't worry. These are the indications of good and bad omen. So something good is going to come out of it. So you don't worry about it." Suddenly, the sun gets wrapped, and the army gets covered with the dust. And less Dashrath, Vasishtha, and 4 sons, everything gets unconscious. Probably the reason is that the gods don't want this episode, which is going to happen now, to be known by anybody and everybody. Only the people who are participants, only they should know. So everyone else is unconscious. Now, Dashratha is frightened because he had an earlier experience of fighting Parshuram, and he knows how Parshuram was, strong. And now he thinks that Parshuram, as per his uh, uh, as per his vow to kill Kshatriya, he is coming to kill us. And it is said that before this episode, uh, Dashratha encountered Parshuram for 350 times. Parshuram had said one condition under which I will not fight or kill a Kshatriya. 2 conditions. One is if his wife is pregnant, and second is if he is getting married. So I believe Dashratha was encountered 350 times by Parshuram, and that is how Dashrath got married to 350 ladies, because every time Parshuram came to attack him, he showed that he's getting married to a lady. That is how he has got 350 wives, married during these encounters, and 3 by other marriages, that is Kausalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi. So he sees Parshuram coming with his radiant Parshu and bow both. So firstly, Parshuram comes and he praises Shri Ram because he has broken that bow which was Shiva Dhanusha. And he also challenges him. He tells him that now that you've done that, I want to confirm it. You have to string my bow now, so that I know that you are the same person, and then you have to fight with me. So the love for Ram and lack of confidence in Ram, Dashrath pleads to Parshuram to forgive him, because he says, if you kill Ram, then how I have nobody in the dynasty, to continue. But then Parshuram had nothing to do with that. So Parshuram just discards Dashrath, and he speaks to Sri Ram only. He explains to the Ram the origin of both the Shiva Dhanusha as well as the Dhanusha that he is carrying, that is Sharanga, that is a Vishnu Dhanusha. So we will not go into that detail, but he explains to him, and Parshuram asks Sri Ram that now you string my bow. And once you string my bow and you string the arrow that I give you, then we'll have a duel. So Sri Ram then, with a strong body language, because Sri Ram is not very happy with his father pleading Parshuram, and Parshuram talking to him in a very arrogant manner. So he says, you don't doubt my, doubt my strength. So, so he takes it with a little bit of anger. He takes that and he strings it, and he strings the arrow to this thing. That the moment he strings the arrow to the bow, uh, at this instant, Parshuram just surrenders. Because Parshuram is the previous avatar of Vishnu. And this is a scene where the avatar has been handed over from Parshuram to Sri Ram. So that is where Parshuram completely surrenders. And this is the time when the demigods, they also appear and they celebrate this handing taking over, as we call it, in our parlance, between the two avatars. Now the arrow was strung to the bow, and it is a very important dhanusha, and you cannot waste that arrow. So Sri Ram tells Parshuram, now where do I place this arrow? I don't want to take your life because I have very high respect for you. I have very high respect for Vishwamitra, who is also related to you. And also you are a Brahmin. So I don't want to take your life. Now I have only two options. One is I kill your mobility, or I kill everything that you have achieved in your life. So what has happened is Parshuram at some point in time, uh, you know, he earned the entire earth. He was ruling the entire earth. But after some sacrifice, he has given this earth to Kashyapa Muni. And then he has promised Kashyap Muni that I will stay on Mahendra Parvat, which is in Himalaya. I will not stay on the earth anywhere. So he says, if you remove my mobility, I will not be able to go back there. So you take back whatever I have achieved in life. I don't want anything of that, but allow me to go there. So Sri Ram does that. He uh, deprives him of all that achievement, and Parshuram goes back to Mahendra Parvat. Now Sri Ram invokes Lord Varuna. Lord Varuna is the Lord of water. He invokes Varuna and hands over this bow to him. Probably this has got the relationship with, you know, with sea that he has to cross when going to Lanka. So that may be the reason. So while everything gets normal, Dasharatha is still in trance. In fact, everyone else is in trance. And at this time, probably Vishwamitra, no, Vasishtha, yes. Vasishtha, Sri Ram, Parshuram, and the demigods who are there. They are the only conscious people. Rest all are unconscious. So now he wakes up Dasharatha, and then they proceed back to Ayodhya. So that is how the Parshuram story ends, and the Ram now becomes avatar. But then Ram forgets this the moment the normal routine work has started. Ram forgets. So Ram nowhere in the life does Ram know that he is a avatar of Vishnu, except for when Vishnu wants to know, or the nature wants to know that he is an avatar. So these people all, come back to Ayodhya. This episode is erased out of everyone's mind, including Sri Ram and Lakshman. The life was normal in Ayodhya, including the post-marriage celebrations and the participation of brothers in governance. Now, one peculiar thing that happens in this part of Baal Kand is that Bharat is sent to his uncle's place, Kaikai Desh, with his uncle who had come for the marriage. So Dasharatha sends him to his uncle's place. Probably, what I feel is, had Bharat been there, probably Kaikai wouldn't have dared asking for the boon what boon she asked. And even Dashrath wouldn't have died. So if he had not died, if Ram had not gone to Vanvas, if Kaikeyi had not, asked for the boons, the remaining Ramayana wouldn't have taken place. And that is what this is a nature's, requirement that Bharat goes to his uncle's place and is not available on the scene when Rama's Rajabhishek is taking place. So with that, we end the Baal Kand. We'll just summarize it for 2 minutes and then I will make the forum open for the questions. So all these things are in relation to our initial hypothesis that Ramayana is not just a book written, it is a project by the gods to maintain that balance of ethics in the world in Kali Yuga. So Vishnu was born as a human. Devatas appear as Vanar. The birth, childhood, education, etc., finishes soonest possible because Ramavatar is based on Anushtan, is an Anushtan Pradhan avatar and not Anubhav Pradhan as in case of Krishna. Then Vishwamitra takes charge of Sri Ram and gives him everything that he has earned in those 10,000 years and even before that. The story that we have heard. So everything that he has earned during that time was all given to Sri Ram in just about 10 to 15 days. So it is not just coincident. This also must have been planned. He kills Tataka and understands the basics of Rajadharma, that just because somebody should not be killed as per ethics, when you are a king, you have to do it. It is not considered as a sin. He deals with Maricha, Subhahu, and Maricha is left alive, whereas Subhahu is killed. I don't know whether it has really got some relationship with the further story of Ramayana, because Maricha has got a lot of respect for Ram, and Marich initially stops Ravana from, his plan of hijacking, kidnapping Sita. But Ravan doesn't listen to him. So he is the person later on who tells Ram that she has been kidnapped by Ravan. So maybe that is the plan or whatever. But Maricha is left alive. He is fired with an Manavastra and not Agnyastra. Vishwamitra manages to get Sri Ram and the brothers, meet Sita and the other sisters. All brothers get married to the people who were destined. And after marriage, he meets Parshuram, where he gets his most deserved bow. And he hands over it to Varuna, where he is going to go in his final Yuddha Kand. Bharat is sent to this thing. So these are the important events, which give links to the entire Ramayana. So with that, I have come to an end of Baal Kand. If there are any questions, you may please ask.
Wow, what an amazing narration, Brigadier Weather. It leaves me speechless.
Thank you, sir.
And you have done it with so much ease. That is what is really amazing. To go through so much of content and then narrate it over 1.5 hours without stopping is amazing. So hats off to you, Brigadier Vidar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Before we open up the session for Q&A, we are sharing a feedback form in the chat. We know what your feedback is going to be like, but please fill out the feedback form so that we can act on it. The link has been shared and it's a 30-second feedback form, Once you have filled it out, please type FD, feedback done, in the chat, and then we will open up. And the person who has got VIM, please, if you can type your full name, I will request you to unmute yourself and ask the question that you had, but after filling out the feedback form. Please type FD in the chat once you have filled out the feedback form so that we can open up the session. Thank you, Murli sir. Thank you, Anjana. So, friends, we open up the session for comments and questions. You may unmute yourself or you may use the reactions button in the toolbar below so that we can invite you to ask your question.
Yeah, Ashish, this is Vikas, and I
Hi.
wanted the first few slides just to. I thought I'm a little confused between Vishwamitra and Vasishtha.
Yeah, maybe you can ask your question and Brigadier Vidur could
So
just.
the first, my understanding is the first few slides were showing Vasishtha as the guy who was actually doing tapascharya, and the guy who was enemy to him was Vasishtha. And then subsequent six tapascharya onwards, again it was Vishwamitra. Is that
So,
correct? Or
Brigadier Vidur, if you could just talk about.
Yeah, I will. Okay, I will go through my slides. If there is a typo mistake, I will correct it. But I'll just clarify your doubts.
yeah.
It's only in the first episode where he fights Vasishtha Muni.
So Vasishtha,
Vishwamitra is a king, okay, and Vasishtha is a Brahmarshi. Vasishtha is a priest with Ikshwaku dynasty, which is of Ram and Dashrath.
so the rishi which was doing tapascharya for attaining Brahmarshi, was it Vasishtha or
Vishwamitra. Vasishtha
Vishwamitra?
was already a Brahmarshi.
Vasishtha was already Brahmarshi. And
Yeah.
was Vasishtha was the Brahmarishi who helped Shanku to send
No,
to heaven Sadaiv?
No, it is Vishwamitra. It is Vasishtha who told him that you cannot do it.
So then I think your slides are
Okay,
worth looking back.
I will go
Yeah,
through
yeah,
the slides. If there is any mistake, I will correct.
yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And please fill out the feedback forms, friends, and type FD. Thank you, Anjana, for sharing the feedback. And any questions or comments that you have, please feel
yeah.
free
Good
to.
evening, Vidur.
Good evening. Good
We
evening.
really relived those cards actually, Baal Kand, and it was something like taking us back to those days, and some kind of a serene kind of a feeling. At least I had that. The interesting part is, at every stage, they say that what Vishwamitra was trying to do, yeah, again and again he got into those that anger, the kama, desireful state. Every time he does the tapas, 4 times or 5 times, to overcome that, you could not come over, get over that. That's
Yes.
sort of interesting phase. Probably it happens applicable to every human being, right? Like kama, krodh, moh, lobh, padasarya. I think all this kind of a thing he continued to have, despite
Despite so many tapascharyas. That's
so
right. So it
many
is so difficult to,
times
overcome that. So although
did the
to the
tapas. That's one
level,
part is very misstold, I think.
yeah, the
Yeah,
level
please.
that probably a Brahmarshi requires to have is very,
Yeah.
very high. But at our level, we have to do some tapasya to, attain some kind of a level where, we not get completely over with this, but then we have control over it.
Exactly. So I just want to know, Pablo, I missed it out. Who confers him ultimately Brahmarshi, and how it happened, despite all the shortcomings, how he overcame?
Brahma does that.
Brahma ultimately confers him it.
Yes.
Because somewhere I read it, Vishwamitra, despite all this, wanted Vasishtha to tell him once, to confirm that, from his mouth, that he is a Brahmarshi. Even though he was conferred Brahmarshi, I mean, somewhere I read it actually. So ultimately, then once Vasishtha tells him also, addresses him as a Brahmarshi. I mean, that's the kind, he always had some kind of a competition with Vasishtha.
Yeah, he had competition. In fact, he had said earlier that you have to call Vasishtha Muni when you are conferring Brahmarshi to me, and when I am invoking those Vedas and all that. But then when Vasishtha comes, he becomes very polite and he washes his feet and all that.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do we have some time, Mr. Ashish?
We are past time, but happy to carry on with the conversation, Brigadier Vidar.
No, there was one question by Captain Murli in the last episode, which I said I will answer this. It will take about 5 to 10 minutes. So I
Sure.
answer it now, or I answer it later, next episode.
We are happy to hear from you.
Okay. So the question was that, one second, let me keep this aside. Janami dharmam nachame pravrutti, janami adharmam nachame nivrutti. So Murli had asked a question whether, why does it happen? Does it have any relationship with the last karmas of the last birth or karmas of this birth? So although I'm not so much equipped to talk about karma, which I'm sure Murli himself is more than me, as per his reading in concern.
No.
I will just include a part of psychology into it to explain, and thereafter I will connect it with karma also. In psychology, there are 3 terms: id, ego, and superego. So what id is your instinct. It is based on the pleasure principle. I want to eat samosa, or I want to drink milk. Like a small child wants to drink milk. He doesn't see where he is, what he is doing, whether there are guests. Kuch nahi. He just wants to eat, means he wants to eat. He wants to sleep, means he wants to sleep. So that is, I want to eat samosa, but what if I have cholesterol? Then I don't want to eat samosa, isn't it? I should not eat samosa. So it is instinctive. So this is one part of your mentality. There is another thing called ego, which we'll see a little later. Then there is superego. Now, superego is over a period of time, based on your upbringing, based on the environment in which you are living, based on the people you are meeting, the books you are reading, the company you are keeping, and all those things. You create some responses for some situations. Now, for one situation, there may be 10 responses or 100 responses or whatever number of responses. And those responses are based on your values and beliefs. And they are lying in your superego. So the superego is on morality principle. Now, everyone's morality depends on his environment. So on the morality principles, you have created some responses. Just to quote a few, suppose I am dieting. Okay. Now I say, okay, once in a week I can, do this. Or something like that. Matlab, I give, some concessions to me myself also. So there are responses with least concession. There are responses with highest number of concessions. So these are certain responses that are based on your values and beliefs. So you have an id, which is instinct. You have responses, which are morality principles. Now there is one ego, which is you yourself. Now this is based on a reality principle. That point in time in the environment that you are, which of the responses is most suitable? That is the way you respond. And therefore you respond to, in one particular situation, you respond to your parents differently, you respond to your teachers differently, you respond to your friends differently. Because you then draw this response from your list of responses that are there. So any response is basically a choice that you make out of many responses that you have. Now that choice can be good or bad. Now if the choice is good, no problem. It doesn't affect you. But the choice is bad, then there is something called cognitive dissonance. And in cognitive dissonance, what happens is that your own mind, it has got very conflicting emotions. कोलेस्ट्रॉल तो है, लेकिन समोसा खा रहा हूं. Okay, now then how do I do this? I mean, there is a stress involved in this. Okay, because I am not supposed to eat samosa because I have cholesterol, or I'm not supposed to eat, say, gulab jamun because I have got diabetes. So when I do this, when I do something with a conflicting nature, how to remove this stress? So the stress is removed. My psychology is a self-healer. The stress is removed by justification. So हफ्ते में एक ही बार तो रसगुल्ला खाया, where is the problem? रोज तो नहीं खाता ना पिज्जा जाके. So you start justifying. दिन में एक ही तो सिगरेट पीता हूँ, या 2 मील के बाद में ही तो सिगरेट पीता हूँ. I am not a smoker like so and so. So I justify myself and I reduce my stress. So the first part of reaction is because of your id-ego and superego, and how you justify your bad response. So this is one part of anything that you do in life. Okay. Now I will go to the human anatomy. In the human anatomy, spiritual anatomy, you have a human being is made of 2 things, spirit and matter. The spirit is self. As long as the spirit is there, the matter lives. When the spirit is not there, the matter doesn't live. Okay. Now the matter is having different components. Your body, mind, and intellect. The body perceives and acts. Mind feels. And intellect thinks. Okay. But what perception you have, what actions you carry out, what feelings you have, and what thinking you do is based on your vasana.
Yeah.
And what is vasana? Vasana is partially made by everything what I already explained to you, like, values and beliefs, based on your bringing up in this life. Partially, it also depends on what you have done in your last life and what are your memories and impressions of the last life. So when you decide on your choice, when you choose a response, it is not only this life, but also the last life comes into play. And therefore, the karmas of last life, they have some effect on your responses in this life. Now I will give you an example which we know of Bhishma Pitama. Now Bhishma Pitama was, you all know that uh, Arjuna created a Sharashaya, of those arrows, bed of arrows. And Bhishma Pitamaha was lying on that and he got killed in that. So he once asked Sri Krishna, Bhai, I have done such good things in life, but why are you giving me death like this? So he says, look, 52 births from now, go back to 52 births, you were a king and you had gone for shikar, and there was a chameleon which was there on a tree, which you disturbed for some reason, and it fell on a cactus tree, which had a lot of thorns. And because it fell there, it died. So this was your destiny. You had to, pay for that sin. And therefore, in this birth, you are dying like this. Now you see, Bhishma Pitamaha had to die like this. Now you go back to all his actions in his lifetime. Within attitude of Bhishma Pitamaha, I don't think he should be supporting Kauravas. I don't think he should be seeing Draupadi getting, whatever treatment she got and accepting that and still be on the Kauravas side. So all through his life, his choices were such that, it brought him nearer to his destiny. If probably his choices were different, he would have been on Pandava's side. But even if he had to die with a Sharashaya on Pandava's side, the respect with which Arjuna did it, probably nobody was there on Kaurava's side who could have done this. Duryodhana definitely wouldn't have killed Bhishma Pitamaha with such a respect as was done by Arjuna. So probably he was on Kaurava's side. And whatever actions that he did all through his life ensured that he is on Kaurava's side because his end was like that. So karma are dependent on what your choices are. Or rather, ulta. Choices are dependent on what your karma are because they are taking you towards a destiny. And therefore, janami adharmam, janami dharmam, nachame pravrutti. Okay, in Bhishma's case, it was not nachame pravrutti. He had pravrutti, but he didn't follow dharma. Janami adharmam, but he didn't even, give due credit to that. So he knew dharma, he knew adharma, and he followed adharma. Therefore, he was destined to a death which he was destined to because of something which he has done 52 births back. So this is my explanation to why a person does that. Does it have any karmic reason? I don't know whether it answers your question because your study on karma and karmic studies are much more than mine. So if you
No, not at all. I think it aptly, answers, and I think it really very convincing. So what we are, the karma plays a major role, and of course, we are the one who cause our own karma actually. And now maybe sometime next session or so, you may, also elaborate, how we living in the material world today. Somehow we want to reduce our karmic effect, the past or present karma. What we can do as a people in a family life, as a grihastha, what can we do little to reduce our effect, if at all there is, it's possible.
okay, let's see.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Murli sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vidu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Everyone. Nice to see you here. So
Thank
I
you, everyone, for joining.
more number
Yes.
of ladies on the show now than when we started. So happy Women's Day to all of you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Brigadier
Thank
Vidu.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining
Thank
the
you all.
session today.
Sure.
And we'll be back soon with the next session on Ramayana. We'll be announcing the date, so stay tuned and happy weekend. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.